Hey guys, it's Ivan, and in today's video we'll have a look at how we can create acid bassline squeal using the SHUTTLE system. As many of you know, acid basslines originated from the Roland TB303 groovebox that initially was designed to replace a bass player in the band but ended up being a commercial failure and was discontinued after 3 years of its release in 1984. 3 years later, the instrument had a second life when a group of electronic musicians from Chicago, known as Phuture, picked up a cheap TB303 and explored its full liquid potential. After playing around with the unit for a few years, many attribute their release Acid Trax in 1987 as the first acid house release. Today we'll recreate the sound of one of the tracks from the Acid Trax, but first, to make the process a little bit easier, we'll recreate the bass from the track by Liebing and Witte called Liquid Snow. The main building blocks of a good acid bass line are fairly simple. They consist of the oscillator, which is either set to saw or square waveform, squealy filter, and in our case we'll be using the resonant low-pass gate, which is the filter number 4 on the ground terminal that is also available on a Squawk Dirty, one envelope that will control the filter cutoff and VCA, distortion to smash the sound and give it more harmonics, and finally some reverb or delay to give the sound some space. Personally, I really like the sound of the saw output on the Phuture generator, so we'll be using that as the core of our sound. Let's connect the saw waveform from the Phuture generator to the ground terminal. Open the filter and change the filter to number 4, which is the resonant low-pass gate. And this one will give us a lot of the squealy character if we boost the resonance. And again, these filters are also available in a more compact format in 6 HP on the Squawk Dirty filter. Now we'll need to overdrive the sound, and to do that we'll be using the gain booster on the ground terminal. To activate it, let's first open the filter and then hold press this button to enter the panner and booster mode. So the first knob will control the panning of the sound and the second one will boost the gain. So we can turn it all the way down or boost it all the way up to introduce some saturation. To exit this mode, hold press the button again, and now you can control the filter again. As you can hear, it sounds a lot more distorted, which will be very important for the acid bass line. If you want to saturate the sound even more, we can hold press these two buttons until we see the green LED, which means that now this filter is going to be routed in a serial to this filter. So then, let's first open the sound, hold press this button, and boost it again. Now let's connect the pitch and gate outputs from track 1 on the ground control to Phuture generator and the envelope on the ground terminal. We'll patch the pitch CV from here into the Phuture generator, and then we'll use the gate output to trigger the first envelope over here. Now let's test that everything works. Let's open the filter. The new technique for today that we haven't covered previously is the processing of the envelope using the gateway. So first we'll take out the unipolar envelope output and patch it over here. And this way we'll have control over the depth of the envelope and the offset. And this will allow us to modulate the filter cutoff not from the minimum position all the way to the maximum, but from somewhere in the middle to the maximum. And this way we can create a more interesting sound for the bassline. Now let's patch the processed envelope from the drop output and put it to the filter cutoff of the filter number 1. As you can see, we can control the offset, we can close it completely and trigger it. We can control the depth. We can even invert the envelope. Now, since we won't be opening the filter cutoff from the minimum position to the maximum, the sound will bleed. So to solve that problem, we'll flip these two switches on the gateway to the down position. And now this means that these two inputs for the resonant controls will act as VCA inputs for the channel 1 and the channel 2. So now let's take out unprocessed envelope, split it with a stackable cable, put it to VCA number 1. And now, since we're boosting the signal twice, we'll get some noise on the second channel. So we'll also make sure that the channel closes. And to do that, we'll take the same envelope and put it to VCA number 2. Now let's hear how this sounds. Now that we have our sound ready, let's create the sequence for the liquid snow, and as it is just one note, we can input the note on the fly and record it to ground control. Let's start our sequence. It's 16 steps long for the track 1. It's important to mention that both of the shapes for attack and decay for the first envelope are set to exponential. This way we can get a very snappy envelope. Now let's move on to a more complicated sequence from the Acid Trax album. For this sequence, we'll utilize parameters such as slides and per-step modulation and accents using the mod output. First of all, in order to hear the slides, we need to set our envelope over here to sustain mode by flipping the switch to the right. This will keep both the filter and VCA open during the slide stage of the sequence. There are two ways to create slides on the ground control. The first one is by playing the sequence by hand and overlapping the notes like so. And the second way is by using the editor. To do that, you press the record button, and then you use the page or pattern keys to scroll through steps. And by pressing the last step button, you can insert the slide to that specific step. To make the process of entering notes on the fly, we'll slow down the tempo to around 95 BPM. Now let's start the sequence and arm the recording. Now we can go back to our original tempo. Now it's a good time to show you how to set up the modulation output to use it as the accent for our filter cutoff. By default, the modulation output responds to the velocity values per step on a specific track, so to set that we press tempo, mod output. Now with these keys we can select from which track it will be reading the velocity value. For us it's track number 1, and we'll set it to unipolar or bipolar. For us unipolar will work better as we just want to accentuate the frequency cutoff. Now let's start the sequence and connect the modulation output over here, and this is our offset input, so we can control it either manually or with external voltage. And since the velocity by default is set to maximum, we will not be hearing any difference. So to edit velocity, we first enter the editor mode, press the velocity button. So now we're editing velocity. Using the pattern keys we can scroll through different steps, and using the keyboard over here we can set the value. Also invert the envelope. Let's edit the velocity once again. Press the velocity button. There is also an option inside of the ground control to slew the modulation output. To do that, you press the tempo, mod output, and press the last step button to slew the output. So let's hear the difference. Let's start the sequence Now this is going to be without the slew. Now let's enter the mod output and press the last step. Now let's also try to switch the switch from the sustain mode to the normal trigger mode, and hear the difference. Now let's see how you can edit the slides on the fly using the editor mode. So let's start our sequence. First, we press the record button. Then we can scroll through steps, and as you can see, there is a slide on step number 1 and there is no slide on step number 2, so we can start editing them. Let's edit the velocity values once again. As you can hear, the Phuture generator with the ground terminal combo can produce a pretty convincing acid bassline. The key ingredient this time was the use of the resonant low-pass gate and the use of the gateway to offset our envelope with extra mode output from the ground control to bend the envelope shape. I will now save this project so you can load it up at home and try it yourself. I hope you learned something today and can find new and interesting uses of the SHUTTLE system in your own productions. And as always, if something wasn't clear, let us know in the comments and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you don't want to miss videos like this in the future, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell notification button. Leave us a like if you found this tutorial helpful. That is all for today. I will see you next time.